started. Well, thanks everyone for joining. My name's Amber and I'm an MLE here at Arize and I'm your host for Drift Happens. We have Shafiq here today as our guest and we're going to be talking about data ingestion, areas around personalization, and really how you use MLOps tools like mParticle, like Arize, to be leveraged by top industry teams and to really get the most out of their ML models in production. Shafiq, thanks for being here today. Could you give us a quick intro, to your background, and then kind of how you got to this current position at mParticle?
Yeah, thank you first for having me on. I'm so excited to be here today. Amber and I met in Austin at the Data Council, and we had a really interesting conversation back then, and we've been talking ever since. So I'm glad that we were able to do this today. So a little bit about me, I'm a bit of a startup junkie. I've played various roles. As one knows in the startup world, you take one cap off and you put another one on pretty much day to day. I started in the nonprofit world, actually leading a project in poverty-stricken areas of South Asia. We were focused on building early childhood educational programs. My family is in the Montessori education field, so I took some time off, as I like to say, after college to do that. I did that for about 5 years and got a real job in the corporate world. I have a technical background, so I started as a sales engineer selling mobile apps, telecom solutions to retail pharmacies. Then I did a stint in product management for about 4 years in a seed stage ML ed tech startup. So I had a wonderful opportunity to work with data scientists and ML engineers firsthand. And then I joined Auth0 in the product marketing org. And then after they were acquired by Okta, I joined mParticle's product team. So that's how I ended up where I am today.
Awesome. And can you tell us a bit about mParticle and how data teams are using it today?
Yeah, so let me take a step back. mParticle is a customer data platform, or CDP, and that term is pretty convoluted, in my opinion, and can mean different things to different people depending on who you ask and the context in which it's used. In fact, for a lot of folks who are here today, they may have not even heard the term CDP. I remember the first conversation you had, and like, so what do you guys do? What is a CDP? Essentially, a CDP, and this is more for this audience, is a tool to enable real-time use cases without requiring the heavy engineering lift to instrument and maintain data pipelines. Specifically, at our core competency, we simplify data ingestion and unification. We provide easy ways to use data monitoring and management tools. Think of observability, like similar to what Arize does, not on the ML side, but on the data flow side. And then finally, activating that data for a wide range of use cases. And I think the most common use case with this audience will be ML modeling, and either seeding that data for models to train or to actually hit those models and use them in production.
Okay. So can you give me maybe a specific customer use case?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, different teams use us for different purposes. Marketing is the most common set of use cases that we address. So imagine, for example, a marketer wants to send real-time push notifications to people who abandon their cart. Product managers want to use us for product analytics. And one common thing I hear all the time is, I can't trust the data that's coming into my analytics tool. So we provide a way to have high data fidelity and quality for usage in product teams. That's definitely something I'm interested in, consumer of. And then specifically for ML engineers, they benefit from having clean data pipelines. That ensures that their models are usable both during training and in production. So different teams benefit different capabilities. In fact, another thing that we added to our platform is in-house ML capability. So I know a lot of times ML engineers will be asked, can you build a model? A marketer, for example, will say, can you tell me a model of people who are likely to buy this next product? And I think from an ML engineer, those are probably not the things that they're excited to do. But we now have in-house capabilities to solve those. Like, should I send a coupon or an ad to a customer that's likely to buy a product? For a marketer, that's big, because why send an advertisement or a coupon to someone who's likely to buy a product? You can save money by not doing that. But I don't think it's I work with ML engineers on that, and that's not what gets them out of bed in the morning to do. So those
Right.
are some examples of use cases for a CDP.
Okay, so it really, on the customer facing customer satisfaction side, like if I'm on Amazon and I'm looking at a product I find interesting, but oh, that's a little high, I could see other products right away that are maybe, like you said, like maybe they have a coupon, maybe, they're in a different color, like maybe they're a little bit cheaper, just to have all those options without me needing to like try to type in different words, to get that search result.
Correct. And then, one thing I should mention is, we are a first party data tool. And what that, I'm not sure if that's a common term, but that basically means we don't rely on any sort of third party data. Like, think of like Facebook. So what you said, for example, if I'm using Facebook Marketplace, I might, do some sort of give me, and this is more marketing, but give me a audience or a cohort that matches all these characteristics, do some ML on top of that to show me what they're likely to do, and then do something. Whereas this is actually using your own first party data that comes from your app and data stack. So that's correct. Long story short.
Okay, awesome. And then we've talked about the data quality issues before. Arize really looking at data quality in terms of production data, the data quality issues that kind of seep in. What makes building data quality pipelines so difficult for teams?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, in order to enable any sort of business use case in production, you have to rely on, and it's the garbage in, garbage out adage here. Everybody knows that. Um, and I would say actually your audience is probably better suited to answer that question, because they experience that day-to-day pain of not having quality data pipelines. I think we've all seen the stats that say, ML engineers, data scientists basically spend most of their time just cleaning data and ensuring that they have high quality data. So from my perspective, I think it's difficult because the technology and the business realities are in constant change. Your data team can build the perfect solution, at any given point in time, saying these are the parameters, this is what I need to do, and build out that solution. But when things change, those solutions either fail, they require expensive engineering resources to make them work. So that adaptability is not there. I'll give you an example to make this tangible. So say you have an application developer. Everyone knows application developers come in and come out of companies all the time, so churn is high. So say you have a new application developer who mistakenly changes an event name in an app, say from item underscore purchase to purchased. They just skip that prefix out. So when that particular payload comes in, well, it breaks the entire data model, because what was expected was one, a name when you got another one. And that can go potentially undetected until it affects all sorts of downstream applications, including ML models and other use cases. And we all know then that there's a scramble to find that needle in the haystack. Why is this happening? All the while, the business is suffering, your team's getting pinged, you're under a lot of stress because the business is losing potentially lots of revenue depending on the use case. So,
Yeah.
to summarize what I said is just there's a constant change, and a lot of companies can't afford, a lot of data teams can't afford to invest their time or hire resources to keep changing and adapting. So when you have a tool like a CDP, it enables those data teams to just say, hey, I can use this to enable those real-time data pipelines, and I can have a system that ensures that quality and enable those use cases and keep my data consumers happy.
Right. And when teams are thinking about how to increase profitability, how to increase customer satisfaction, there's a key component there of like that personalization a lot of times. Why is personalization so crucial for the user experience?
The personalization buzzword. um, so I think it starts off with asking what personalization means. For some companies, it's a matter of, here, you could take a step back and say, uh, I'm sure every data engineer out there has been asked by some data consumer, can you query the database and give me a CSV for this? I mean, technically that could be personalization, but I think what we're talking about here in the modern day is personalization is that real-time customer experience, not that, think of the batch mass email. This is the very targeted, very specific type of personalization. So
Mhm.
what makes it difficult, or what makes it, sorry, crucial is, I think if you take a step back and look at Amazon, they've really proven that personalization use case in a very visceral manner. Everyone has experienced that power. Consider when you go to their homepage. I mean, I'm always looking at, oh yeah, I like that, I like that, I like that. I want to buy all that stuff. And then you pick one thing, let's say it's a pair of Jordans, and I'm like, yeah, this is, I'm a big basketball fan. So I add the Jordans to my shopping cart. And then magically, the perfect set of socks that match those Jordans appear in the window. So, from a customer's perspective or the user's perspective, it's very benign. But from a business perspective, you see double-digit lifts in conversions and business. So, why is it crucial? Is one, it makes it easier for me as a consumer, as a user, to find the things and have the discoverability of what I like, whether that's on Netflix, the content, or whether that's an Amazon and its products. Personalization drives sales, loyalty in a brand, and just a better customer experience. And that it's crucial, but it's really hard. Like all the examples that we're talking
Mhm.
about are big named companies on Netflix and Amazon and Facebook and all these companies. It's just a very hard problem to solve, and unless you have the big bucks like those names,
Yeah.
it's hard to break into that.
And I'm curious, like from a customer's perspective, like when they want personalization, similarly with Netflix recommendations and personalization, there's always a debate on, you know, um, do we prioritize speed or do we prioritize accuracy? Why is it so hard to have both?
Yeah. I want to add one thing to what I said earlier, and I'll answer this question is, I said it's like all the big names, but as I said that, I realized it's not just the big names, because I know a lot of big names that have immature data teams. And
Yeah.
so I think it's not just, do you have the resources, but do you have a sophisticated data team? Do you have resources
Yeah.
for that? So why is it hard to do? Why I think it starts with scale. If you are dealing with customers one-to-one, think of like an in-store experience versus an in-app experience. Like you can train the greeters and the tellers and the my brain's gone blank, but the people at the POS who check you out,
Mhm.
like you can train them to be smile and make the customer feel good. But how do you do that in an app? And what makes it difficult when you get into that world and you're doing it at scale is customers are all over the place. So like I mentioned, they're in the store, they're on your mobile app, they're on your web app, they're doing all sorts of random things. So for example, someone downloads your mobile app, but then switches over to the web app. That data in a practical sense will get siloed typically. So it makes it very difficult to maintain that personalized experience in real time. When we're talking about doing it at scale, it really requires significant engineering effort to stitch that data together, or build a profile that then can be fed into a ML model, for example, to give you accurate recommendations. And that effort and that ability to not only implement it, but maintain it and keep it going, it becomes very expensive. So, I would say, when it comes down to the companies like Netflix and Amazon, they have dedicated significant resources, from my understanding, to implement this, and they've built a lot of this tooling in-house. So, but other companies just don't have the same resourcing ability to do it, to break those silos and really build those customer profiles to create that personalization.
And we talked about, it's not just, well, as you said, like, it's not just the size of the company, it's the maturity, like, of the data teams. 10 years ago, the largest companies didn't even have like dedicated machine learning AI teams, and now they do. And now they're starting to add different MLOps teams and MLOps engineers, personalization engineers, all these new terms. So when customers come to you and they're asking about what mParticle offers, they probably already have this build versus buy debate going on internally. Can you tell us about kind of what teams are thinking in the build versus buy options for CDPs?
Yeah, honestly, I think the build versus buy conversation starts with awareness. I think a lot of teams are not even aware that there are tools out there that can solve a lot of their use cases. I remember when I was working at Auth0, our biggest kind of thought when it came to build versus buy was, don't focus on the low impact work, like the 20% or the 80% of effort that only solves 20% of the problem, right? Focus on those core competencies, those interesting things about your app. So, I apply the same logic when it comes to a CDP. Is one, be aware what the tools are. And then when it comes to considerations, it's like 80% of your effort doesn't need to go into building and maintaining data pipelines, because that's 20% of the value that your company gets from that sort of those sort of efforts. I think any data team can benefit from a CDP, specifically those CDPs that focus on infrastructure. I hear all the time about how folks, when they start thinking about building internally, they're talking about the modern data stack and how that is like the holy grail of solving all the data pipeline issues. And on the surface, it sounds really great and very promising. But when you start to dig deeper and you start to see like where it can actually make an impact, it falls short for a lot of use cases. Think of, for example, real-time use cases. I don't think anybody uses Snowflake for that. And even if you try to build on top of Snowflake, use cases such as cart abandonment. If I added something to my cart and I like on, let's say, again, let's pick on Amazon because they do such a good job of this, and I forget about it. Or, just recently I was, my kids were brushing their teeth and I noticed that they're running low on toothpaste. And so I just pulled my phone out, quickly scanned the barcode, added it, but I forgot to check out. And I put it in my pocket away because I got distracted. And then like 2 days later, I was just like, where's the toothpaste? I thought I ordered it. Right. So in that case, and this is, I guess if anyone from Amazon is listening, you should have sent me a push notification. You just can't do that sort of thing. They would have closed the sale. I would have had a better customer experience. They would have obviously made money off of doing that. And when you do that at scale, who knows how many situations like that they could have converted. So
Yeah.
you just can't do that unless you have those those tools, or you invest a lot in engineering resources to build out a solution and maintain it. So with a CDP, you can really go quickly and implement something quickly and efficiently. And instead of investing those resources in building and maintaining those real-time data pipelines, you can invest them in more interesting tasks, like building the next ML model that's going to make a huge impact on your business.
Yeah. A lot of times we focus with teams on like what are your pain points? What are the things that are blocking you from I'm doing what's in the job description a lot of the time. And the time to value for your teams is so strong that a lot of times when we look at build versus buy, I think it's most of the ML ops platform. It's just like, is the time to value worth it to try and build it in-house? And most of the time it's not. And then you might have also seen like if you have teams that are like, oh, I can just repurpose this tool or chain these things together. But one thing that you had mentioned is kind of that you don't always know what you don't know aspect of it. And if you're just trying to focus on those 20%, that long tail hard problem, you're missing the forest for the trees. And that might have been the only time I've correctly used that analogy. So I totally understand.
Internally we use from a marketing perspective, we call it time to data value. Because specifically for our industry, it's like time to value. It's like, okay, every tool is supposed to increase time to value. But for us, it's like, get the most value out of their data as fast as you possibly can.
Exactly. Like for the team, like for the engineers, and then kind of helping the education. MLOps is very new. I'm just now seeing, like all the, hiring for MLOps engineers and MLOps programs and educational courses. So what do you and does mParticle do to kind of help those immature data teams that are trying to take that first step into personalization and maturing their data pipelines?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we provide the data infrastructure layer for these real-time use cases. So we could sit here and talk for hours about all the business use cases when you have real-time capability. But one thing that's relevant for this group is being able to build those ML models and use them in production with real-time data. Nothing would make me. I remember from my ML days was building a model on data that you realize was corrupt or incomplete, or the model was broken in some way. And then once you have it and you implement it, right, it's just so we focus on that data infrastructure layer. And I see many organizations that don't have a sophisticated data strategy in place. So taking a step back when you start thinking about data maturity, it starts with a data strategy, saying, hey, here is how we're going to use data in our company for X, Y, Z purposes. I see a lot of organizations that don't have that in place. So every team is left to form their own strategy. Think of taxonomy, think of things like schemas, etc. And that ends up being at the peril of all data consumers at that organization. This team is doing this, marketing is doing that, products doing that. And then when it's time to actually use the data and activate it, then you're spending countless hours stitching the data from this silo and that silo and this source and this one. And it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is then teams end up focusing their energy on that 20% of impact, and 80% of their effort goes there. But with the CDP, we kind of like make the immature team mature for two reasons. One, we've been doing this for a decade, so nearly a decade. And so we have built a lot of in-house expertise. We work with big name companies like NBC, CNN, we have like real world experience of what other teams have done and how we've helped mature those teams. So, we have the expertise, and we also have the platform to be able to help create those more mature practices, and in the real world, help you solve those low-hanging fruit problems, or what I call acute problems that drive immediate impact without requiring too many resources or requiring having mature teams in place. A lot of our customers will come in and say, hey, I have this one problem of getting data here to here, it's just broken, I need to fix this. And they use mParticle, they see the value of doing that, and the impact, and then they end up using it for all sorts of other use cases. So I would say that's probably, the expertise and the platform itself will really help fast track immature data teams.
Okay. And then I guess just in terms of the
Actually,
data.
I have a question
Yeah.
for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious, like, we've been talking about all the benefit of using a CDP, but I'm curious, in real world, what is a typical experience of an ML engineer or data scientist? What happens, like, what goes when something goes wrong? What's the typical experience?
Right. Yeah. So that's a great question. So that post deployment workflow. We've seen some teams that they try to retrain their models every day just to avoid things like data quality issues and drift and performance degradation. And then we see teams that, oh, these models are huge. They're large teams. This is an NLP model, like a ton of different teams that applies to, and they retrain it like every 6 months or even every year. So for machine learning engineers, for them, it's being able to get observability into how their models are doing in this new environment. Models are always going to drift. They're always going to be dynamic. And they start drifting as soon as you put them into the real world. So the key things with ML engineers is they want to know, is everything working as expected, or at least in the range of what I'm expecting? Because with the Arize platform, we'll alert teams if there's any problems with data quality, drift, performance. And then as soon as we kind of raise that red flag, we show them where in the data that's happening. We actually did a survey that showed 80%, I think actually 84% of teams say it takes at least a week to detect and fix an issue in production. Part of that's even knowing there is an issue. And then the other part of that is finding where in the data that issue exists. Because a lot of teams are finding that there's issues either when something breaks or when customers are calling and complaining, like we've kind of touched on earlier. So that's the big part for us, our machine learning engineers. It's like they want to be able to do machine learning engineering, and data scientists want to do data science. So how can we enable that?
Yeah, so the way I heard it is, Arize kind of raises the flag to what the problem is,
Yeah.
and then with a solution like mParticle, they can quickly go and fix it without having to rely on putting something in the backlog and waiting for an application developer to fix the problem in the source code. So they can just go into mParticle, do a quick data transformation, and boom, problem solved.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's definitely I think both Arize and mParticle are in like a mature data MLOps pipeline for sure.
Very
All right.
cool.
Well, Shafiq, we're at the half hour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that went by fast. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks, Shafiq, for your time. This has been a lot of fun, and hope everyone has a good rest of their day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. Bye.